Hey there, how's it going? I am Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I am excited to spend the next hour with you. As usual, you can ask me anything. I'm happy to talk about anything. I'll talk about games a little bit today, about Stonemaier Games, and some other random topics, just some stuff that's going on. Maybe I'll try to cover the stuff in the title first. And I led off with daylight saving because I wanted to let people know who are in different parts of the world that the time did change in the US, or in most states in the US, over the past weekend. So it is 10 a.m. in St. Louis right now, and it might be a different time than usual for you, depending on where you are and when your clocks change, and if your clocks change at all. I've had the effect of waking up pretty early over the last few days as a result. So I feel very productive, and then I get a little tired a little bit earlier than normal. Garrett is ahead of the game here. So Garrett is mentioned. He said, "Love your new video format this morning. A great spin on anticipation." Thank you, Garrett, for saying that. So yeah, I wanted to mention that a little bit today because I did a blog post this past Monday where I looked into 9 YouTube channels that the only commonality between those channels is that they are all tabletop games channels, and they all post a variety of videos. They don't just post one type of video. And I looked into their view counts, their average view counts on recent videos for those types of videos. And the thing that stood out from all that, from that very small slice of data, but there were some patterns that emerged, were that videos about upcoming anticipated games, like most anticipated games of Essen or most anticipated games of Gen Con, were by far the most viewed games on those channels, which surprised me a little bit because personally, I don't watch those videos because I want to watch those creators talk about games that they've played and their opinions and thoughts on games that they've played, not the hypothetical excitement for something that they might play in the future. Nothing against that. I was just fascinated by it, that was so different, opposed to even like top 10 lists, which were high on that list in terms of views. They had significantly fewer views than those anticipation videos. And so what I realized was maybe there's a way for me to talk about anticipation. If that's what people enjoy, every now and then I could talk about things that I am anticipating, games that I'm anticipating, but that I've already played. And so I posted the first video in what might be a monthly series this morning about the top 3 most anticipated games that I want to play again. So these are games that I've already played, and I am looking forward to playing them again. And it happens that in this current video, I did post, I included Origin Story on that list because I'm just having a blast playing and teaching Origin Story and sharing it with my friends right now. But I also included 2 other games, Apostocracy and Windmill Valley, which I'm hoping to get to the table again. So my little twist on that, I'm curious what you think about anticipation. I'm fascinated by the psychology of anticipation and what it does to us. Getting excited about future potential things rather than what we already have or already own. So I wanted to put my little twist on that. I am not interested in doing videos about games that I have not played yet, but I am interested in talking about games that I am excited to get back to the table. So that's my twist on it. Long answer to what wasn't a question for you, Garrett, but thank you for commenting on that. Carol also mentions unboxing videos. And interestingly, Carol, across all 8 of those videos, or all 9 of those videos, I guess I do some unboxing videos, but very, very rarely, and only for Stonemaier Games. Across all 8 of those other channels, none of them do unboxing videos. So at least not recently. So it does happen. Channels do that, and I'm surprised as well, but not on those channels. So Tim mentions that he is on the livecast right now, but he's also watching the Supreme Court right now because the Supreme Court is finally hearing not specifically our case, but a very similar case to ours that allege that the president does not have the power, the authority to implement tariff taxes. And so the Supreme Court is hearing this case right now. It's a case that's very similar to our case, a case that, I want to be clear, I never wanted to, I don't like to get legal. I don't want to ever file a lawsuit. That is not something that I'm excited to do. But the tariff taxes have been a huge impediment on my business and on the game industry in general. So it was in lieu of what seemed to be something that was not going to change. I am glad that that maybe it has a chance of changing today if the Supreme Court make sense of the case today. So we'll see what happens. I wanted to highlight that. We'll see what happens later today, later this week on what they decide to rule on it. Carol says, I think people get excited for the future and like to know what to look out for. So anticipation videos are just fun. I get that. I think the thing that has baffled me a little bit about it is that I think top 10 videos to me do kind of the same thing, because most people haven't played all the games on the top 10 video. And if you watch a top 10 video, you're not only getting excitement about a future game, but you're getting excitement about a game that a reviewer has actually played and can speak to on an informed basis. That's why it's so surprising to me that it was such a big gap between the two. However, someone did point out something on the Facebook comments about it, that one of the nice things that might be appealing about anticipation videos is that they're often very time sensitive. Like if it's tied to a convention, then it's like specific to that moment in time. What are we, the collective we, what are we excited about right now, about what is happening right now? Whereas a top 10 video is less timely. It's, it could be, you could watch a top 10 video at any time and it's somewhat relevant. Jonathan says, speaking of anticipation, have you heard about Garphill's recent announcement of Spirited? I did see that. I didn't watch most of the video, but I flipped through the video a little bit when they posted. I think it was Sunday, my time, when that video went live. A very different look than what I've seen from the other games in terms of the art, but I'm excited to see what they do. I'm always excited about a new Garphill game. I don't play them all because they have gotten very, very heavy, but Spirited didn't look quite as heavy as some of their most recent games, so it might be a good fit for me. Oh, here's Heather, the designer and the artist of Apostocracy. Heather, yeah, I finally got my copy back from the friend who borrowed it. And so now I get the challenge of seeing how well I remember it after not having played it for a month. That's always an interesting challenge, I think, for a game. But I am super excited to get Apostocracy back to the table with more players. I've only played it at 2 so far. Yeah, I see some. So yesterday was election day in the U.S., somewhat midterm election for some states. The state that I'm from, Virginia, there was a gubernatorial election there. I don't know. I don't follow Virginia politics all that much because I live in Missouri, but I grew up in Virginia, so I was excited to see the results there. And yeah, I think voting is just such a powerful thing that people get to share their voice through something official that makes a difference in the world. Regardless of what your political affiliation might be, I think I love when anyone votes, because that is such a powerful thing to do in a democracy. Some topics that I wanted to cover today. I've done, I guess, all the 3 topics in the subject line. Some stuff going on here. I've been working on some game design, some like brainstorming level stuff, some play testing. I was working on a play test right before this live cast. I mentioned what else have I think I play tested something else, but I'm forgetting about it. Just doing some odds and ends game design recently, having fun with that. Halloween was this past weekend, and I had a very chill Halloween with some friends. We got together, we watched Coraline, which I mentioned last week. I'd never seen it. Really, really impressive stop motion animation. And yeah, we had a good time watching that, ate some pizza, saw some trick-or-treaters, had a good time with that. Did you all do anything or have any special events happen on your Halloween? Any fun costumes that you saw? Also, kind of in the Halloween spirit, we've been watching the show Yellow Jackets. Megan and I have been watching the show, and we are loving it. Like it's a pretty intense show. The hook of the show that you know right from the beginning is that a high school girls soccer team in this scripted show, this is not based on a real life event, a high school girls soccer team get on a private jet on the way to the big game, and the plane crashes in the woods. And you know from the very beginning that the girls end up stuck in the forest for around 18 months, but some of them survive. So the show cuts back and forth between what's happening in the forest and what's happening in the present day, the modern day, where these girls have become women and they are still alive. Some of them are. It is a fascinating show. Like we are completely hooked on it, and I think I haven't like looked at the episode counts or anything because I don't want to spoil anything. I think we're at the the end of the second season right now, but we're loving it. It is intense, and so I understand that it's certainly not a show for everyone, but I think it's worth a try if you're okay with a pretty intense show. Yeah, really, really incredible show in Yellow Jackets. Matt says, Vantage was my first game of yours I bought. I love it. Origin Story second. Love it. I want Wormspan now, but need the stone eggs before I buy. When are they back in stock in the UK? That's a good question, Matt. I will have to check on the in-stock status of, I assume they're out of stock, so make sure to sign up for a back-in-stock notification, so we'll let you know when they're back in stock. But I don't know the current status on it. Let me see if I can find out in real time, real quick here, Matt. Stone eggs, here we go. Okay. It looks like they arrived very recently in the US, and so they should be arriving elsewhere. Although I'm not seeing them on a recent shipment to Spiral Galaxy in the UK. I will check on that, Matt, just to see if more are on the way there. Thank you for asking about the stone eggs. Stone eggs, UK. Melissa mentions that PAX U is coming up soon, PAX Unplugged. We will have a presence there through MeepleSource. And if any of you have been watching or listening to the Positively Board Gaming podcast that I filmed with my friend Mitchell, it will be there at PAX U, and he would love to say hi to you. He just brought this up yesterday. We did a recording yesterday that will go live right before PAX U. So that'll be a little reminder if you listen to that podcast. But look out for Mitchell there. Say hi. I think he would love to say hi to someone who listens to the podcast or just wants to say hi and talk about games. Especially if you want to talk about custom dice. Mitchell loves to talk about custom dice. Jeff says that he can't. Just pop it in real quick. Did we hear any good jokes for trick-or-treating? I don't think we did. Mostly another friend that we were at a friend's house. My friend Adam, he was the one that kind of opened the door and greeted the kids and the adults. And I don't think we got any jokes. Just saw some really cute costumes. Aaron spent their weekend on a mini vacation to New York City, and then our store participated in Game Store Day. That's awesome, Aaron. I hope Game Store Day went well for you. I feel like we at Stonemaier Games kind of celebrate local game stores on Black Friday. That's kind of become a tradition for us to not do a Black Friday sale and instead urge people to go to a local game store on that day. But I wonder if I don't know if Susanna actually did anything for Game Store Day. But yeah, I hope it went well for your store. I see some other people are sharing what they're watching. Tony also mentioned Yellow Jackets here. Aaron mentioned that they're watching Star Trek Lower Decks and been loving it. I've only seen the crossover episode with Strange New Worlds. I haven't actually seen the Lower Decks show. Garrett is enjoying Tend and Tag Team, both highly recommended. They are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of mental overhead, but both a delightful experience that ramps up nicely. I'm glad to hear you're having fun with those, Garrett. I'm really excited to play Tag Team, and I'm always curious about a roll and write, especially one that does things that aren't in typical roll and write games, I guess I want to say. And I've heard 10 does that. But Tag Team, I've heard really cool things about that. And Duel of Cardia are two games on my dueling list that I'm hoping to play soon. Matt says, can you send me your set? So my set of stone eggs from the US, I can't do that, Matt. I want to keep my set of stone eggs, if that's what you're referring to. Keith says, Vantage was such a huge undertaking. It was, Keith. Not unlike Role Player Adventures for you. What's your appetite for creating more content for it? Expansions games that use the system with different setting? Well, I've kind of said from the start that Vantage is complete. It's a complete game. It's so interconnected and interwoven. I went into it, or I didn't go into it, but during the design process, I decided I just want to put everything in the game that could exist on this planet, in this world. So there will be no expansions, for sure. I really like the action system in Vantage, and so I might explore that. I might explore a new game using that system in the future. And I also like the first-person perspective. So I think there's a possibility for something new in the future that is related to what I did in Vantage. But Vantage itself is a complete game out of the box and won't have any expansions. Austin says, we're nearly to the end of the year, another great year of Stonemaier Games products. And yeah, Austin, you're right. We have kind of sold or launched our final products of the year, final new products of the year. Some of them haven't had their retail release yet, but we have launched them. So they were like Origin Story, the Tokaido expansion, that stuff. Austin says, do I think it's almost time for the third installment of your brief history of Stonemaier Games? I actually do have it on my list, Austin. I am waiting to do it a little bit closer to the end of the year, or at least film it a little closer to the end of the year, because I want to cover the years 2023 through 2025 in that video. So what Austin's referring to is I've done 2 videos that cover the history of Stonemaier Games. I did one video that covered the first like 6 years maybe, then another video that covered up to 2023, and now I have another 3 years to cover in a new video. In those videos, I talk about the things that we released, but I also talked about the other things that have evolved and changed at Stonemaier Games. And 2023 through 2025 are pretty big because that's when I added some coworkers. So yeah, I'm excited to do that, Austin. Thank you for asking about that. Stuart says, I finally got my hands on Clans of Caledonia after years of waiting for a reprint. If you could acquire an out-of-print game to republish, which one would you pick? Well, Stuart, out of print, I don't know about out of print. I will say that I am really happy that we acquired the Tokaido brand, which is the closest that I think we've come to doing this. But having done it, I don't think we'll do it again. I think it has crowded our schedule so much that it has taken away from one of the core philosophies of Stonemaier Games, which is to shine the spotlight on only a few products each year. So I don't think we would. I think we acquired Tokaido because we already liked what it was, but we thought we could make it maybe a little bit better, slightly clearer rule books, more accessible components, things like that. So I think that's what we would target if we could approach a game. But we did this for Libertalia too. Although Libertalia, I spent a lot more time reworking Libertalia with a designer. Anyway, long story short, I don't think we'll do it again. I don't think there is one that I want to do again, especially after my experience with Tokaido. Just seeing, not specific to the game itself, but seeing how much it has crowded our schedule because we've added it. Jerry says, I recently started organizing a board game night at a shelter for Ukrainian refugees in my neighborhood, that is incredible. Thank you for doing that. That is really incredible. He says, we've had a few sessions so far, and the goal is to make it a weekly event. There's a strong interest in chess due to their cultural background. So for now, I'm mostly there to listen, to get to know them, and see whether interest in other games develops over time without pushing anything. I introduced them to Carcassonne, and they enjoyed it. Hopefully this little initiative can bring some joy. I think joy was where you're going with that. But yeah, that's incredible. I think that is really, really incredible. We have... I don't even want to say what we've done. We've tried to do some things to help Ukrainian humanitarian aid and refugees as well, but not as directly. Well, directly in a different way. We've done it financially, but for you to be there in person to host those nights and just to listen and learn and host is really, really awesome. Thank you for doing that. If there's anything that we can do with Stonemaier Games to help what you're doing, we don't have any chess-like games, but if you ever want to try introducing some Stonemaier Games to that group, let me know. I'm happy to provide them. A lot of people talk about Tend and Tag Team today. Armando says, do you see the potential of a Stonemaier campaign or legacy game in the future? If so, does Stonemaier process submissions for campaign or legacy games? I would say that I have cooled significantly on campaign and legacy games. And I tie those two together because I think pretty much every legacy game, I think, is a campaign game as well. They require multiple plays with the same group. I've really cooled on that. So I would say it is, if you have something awesome, please submit it. That's always the case. We can always consider it if it fits our guidelines, but it is something that I am not very enthusiastic right now as a publisher or as a player. We do have a few campaign games in our portfolio. If you haven't played Charterstone, if you haven't played The Rise of Fenris for Scythe, but I don't think I'm forgetting that. There might be one. And we kind of have a mini campaign in Rolling Realms for solo play. I feel like I'm forgetting one that I often forget anyway. But yeah, it is not a major focus for us. I am seeing fewer people playing campaign games, even though they seem to be an appeal an appealing aspect, like a selling point for a game, even though fewer people are actually playing them. Tinkler says, were the origin story rules hard to write? I think every rule book is a little hard to write, but I do enjoy going through that process of writing, revising, refining. Having to decide how much about trick taking to explain, where to put the two-player mode, and how much detail to add about how different players interact. Yes, it was a particularly interesting challenge for Origin Story because we didn't want to assume that anyone reading the rulebook knew what a trick taking game was, but we also wanted to make it, we wanted to kind of cut to the new elements of trick taking, the hooks, the things that are different for those who already know the basics of trick taking. So that it was more of a layout formatting puzzle there to figure out where to put it. And like you said, where to put the two-player stuff as well. Yeah, that was an interesting challenge. And I almost think I felt a little short in the two-player description for the game because I don't think I made it quite as clear as I should be that in the two-player rule, like the sidekicks in the two-player rules, they have to follow the lead suit if possible. I don't think I made that as quite as clear as I could have, even though it does say that they follow trick-taking rules. But yeah, definitely an interesting challenge. And the challenge for the different powers, I think sometimes people say, why not do a full appendix of all the powers? When we put text on cards, my goal is for that text to explain anything about the card that you need to know. I think Wingspan does it well, where they highlight a few different types of cards or cycles of cards. Wormspan does this as well, rather than having an appendix that goes through every single card. But that's my goal. When I have a card with text on it, I want that card to stand alone without the need for any other reference in the game. Aaron says, I played a bunch of Vantage over the weekend, and I'm still discovering new stuff. It's incredible how much you put in this game. Thank you, Aaron, for saying that. I'm glad you're still having fun with it. I am looking forward to getting Vantage back to the table, even though I didn't put it on my most anticipated list. Just maybe not by myself necessarily, but without one of the challenges. I'm enjoying the monthly challenges, but one of my favorite things to do in Vantage is just to crash on the planet and play for a little while and decide while I'm playing what's important to me. That is the freedom that I truly love about Vantage. And while the challenges are fun, it kind of takes that away a little bit, because when I crash land with a monthly challenge, currently the Aquaman challenge, spent some time underwater or on the ocean. It's very specific. It's taking away that freedom and saying, here's what you got to do. I'm curious, Aaron, have you tried any of the monthly challenges, and are you finding that same thing with the freedom? Grayson mentions that Tag Team is on Board Game Arena. Yeah, I'll probably play there first and see how I feel about it before playing it on the tabletop. We'll see about that, Grayson. Doubt mentions, when I first heard you mention Origin Story, I thought of the book Hench, about a super villain REMP agency. Funny book. I haven't heard of Hench, but I have heard there's a book with villain in the title. Like Now I've Become the Villain, something like that, that I really enjoyed. I wish I could come up with the exact title. I can't remember it offhand, though. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, let me know. Might have, like, I Have Become the Villain, something like that. Oh, here's a starter villain from Scalzi, John Scalzi, known for Old Man's War. Have I read Starter Villain? I don't know if I have. I like reading like twist on superhero and supervillain tales. So these are good recommendations. I'll make a note of these. Starter Villain and Hench. Thank you for those book recommendations. Julio says, has there been a question of the day? There hasn't been, but I appreciate you prompting me for that. So I kind of had an open-ended question today, I think. Let me see if I've added anything to the list in the meantime. Yeah, let me ask my open-ended question, which is that for those of you who read the Stonemaier Games blog, the articles that I write about crowdfunding and marketing and entrepreneurship and sometimes content creation, as I did this past Monday, are there any topics that I haven't covered or haven't covered recently that you would like me to cover? Anything goes, as long as it's related to those things. I don't talk about game design specifically on the blog, but I can talk about game marketing, product design, things like that. Yeah, any topics that you would like me to cover on the blog? That's my initial question of the day. I might have one other one for you, Julio, but that's my starter. Robert says, hello from Australia. You are up late in Australia, Robert. I hope you're doing okay. I read your article, Top Lessons Learned from Our 2025 Releases. Where is the best place to leave feedback about it? In the comments. There are comments on that article that you can leave your feedback on. I'd love to hear about that. In fact, I think in the article I invite feedback in the comments. But yeah, there's a comment section on our website. Tom says, I've had 2 kids in just over 2 years. My board gaming collection has taken a bit of a back seat. Wondering what age people started to get their children into board games. So this is a good question of the day for you all who have kids. I don't have kids. But yeah, that's a good question, Tom. Let's see what people say about that. Matt says, have you had any plans for a Black Friday sale on your website? You know, Matt, I mentioned this a little bit a few minutes ago. We specifically don't do a Black Friday sale. Instead, we celebrate local retailers for Black Friday. So there won't be any special Black Friday sales on our web store. We just say, this is a day that we'd rather you support your local retailer, and not just support them, but like go there and browse and learn about a game there, play a game just for fun there and see if it's a good fit for you. Austin, thank you, Austin. Yeah, Viticulture World is a semi-campaign game. It isn't there's no like carryover from game to game, but it does play in a semi scenario driven, I would say more scenario driven, but it is akin to a campaign game. Aaron says, I introduced Origin Story last week to my family and my mom annihilated us. Makes for a memorable story, right? Curve Cut says about rulebook writing. I just wrote a rulebook for my trick-taking game, and it was so hard. It took a lot of feedback to get it right. Yeah, it's a tricky thing to write a rulebook for a very well-established mechanism, because you want it to be inviting to people who don't know that mechanism, and that a lot of people are out there who don't know that mechanism. But you also don't want to spend so much time on that mechanism that those who are learning the new aspects of the game and already know that mechanism, where it kind of dilutes what's important for them to learn that's new. Yeah, it's a tough challenge. Dan says, was Origin Story smaller footprint influenced by the tariffs? No, like most of our products, like they've been in the works for a couple of years now, including Origin Story's product design. The smaller size was in the works well before the tariffs were implemented. I think we went to production on Origin Story probably in like January. So I guess the tariffs were starting out then, but they hadn't gotten really bad at that point. Yeah. But that's one of the things that's been the most difficult about the tariff taxes, that companies spend a lot of time on products, working on products with oftentimes a long-term partner like our partner in Panda. And so it isn't possible to make a quick change. It isn't possible. And B, especially if you were trying to make the best version of the product and serve your customers, it just isn't possible to do that on a whim. And that's the danger of changing really important tax policy on a whim. You can't, it doesn't allow businesses to have the time to make sweeping changes to their business. Nor do I think businesses should have to make those types of sweeping changes to their business if they have something that works really well for them and their customers. Sandy says that he played his first game of Origin Story at last Friday's game night. Went down really well. Can't wait to play again. I'm glad you had fun with that, Sandy. Thanks for giving it a try. So Aaron says, as for the Vantage monthly challenges, they haven't tried them. I forgot they existed. I just like crashing on the planet and just bumbling around, seeing what I can find. No destination in mind. That is my preferred way to play as well. I really do prefer playing that way when I play Vantage. It's almost made me wonder. So about Vantage, and there was another comment from Keith earlier about like the future of Vantage. If I make a sequel to Vantage, anything like that. For those of you who have played Vantage, here's another question I have for you. How important do you think the mission is? Like, do you like that there is a central goal that you can choose to follow or not? Do you like that it is something collective that you're doing as a group, especially since you're spread out across the world? Or do you think Vantage could work without the mission? Do you play Vantage and not pay attention to the mission sometimes? Curious what you think about the mission aspect of a game like Vantage, where you are far apart from the other players. Board Game Eric says, we'd like to do theme-driven months when picking and playing board games in our house. Do you ever do theme-driven ideas for playing board games? Sometimes, yeah, like seasonally. Recently, I wanted to get a spooky game to the table. We got Mysterium Park to the table. So I think there's a little seasonality to that. Every now and then I'll host a board game night that maybe is food themed, and I'll try to tie the game to the food, or tie the food to the game that we're playing, things like that. So I dabble in it, but I wouldn't say I do it all that often. Do you have any favorites that you've done where it led to some really fun combinations of games over the course of a month? Jay Zargo says, do sidekicks, this is the 2-player mode in Origin Story, do they work with final hero abilities, such as make a trick with cards in your hand for each player in the game? So, importantly, no. So sidekicks are not players and they're not opponents. They are their own category of sidekicks. They're sidekicks. So they don't count as a player. They don't count as an opponent when you see those terms elsewhere in the game. And abilities just don't, like abilities, powers, nothing applies to the sidekicks. They are purely there to play a card into the trick. That's all they're there for. There's still only 2 players in a sidekick game. Tom says, I'm a Dodgers fan. This is Tom. Did you watch the World Series and would you ever do a sports game? I think the only kind of sports game that I would consider would be a racing game, which ironically is the one type of sport that I very rarely watch other than maybe sprinting in the Olympics. I didn't watch the World Series, but I did pay attention to it. I was curious about who would win. I looked online to see the score. I looked at the highlights, that sort of thing, but I didn't watch it live at all. I'm curious if I've read Starter Villain now. It really reads. So here's another comment about Starter Villain. I'm going to look it up to see if I have read it. Let's see. Starter Villain, John Scalzi. Have I read this book? Oh, yeah, I've read this book. Yes. Okay, a couple years ago. Yeah, the cover is very distinct. Has a big cat on the cover. I have read that book, and I agree. It does go in a direction that I wasn't expecting. Okay, so there was a question from Tom, I believe, about when people got their kids into gaming, when they introduced their kids to games. Stefan says, I started my kids on board games as soon as they could hold stuff in their hands, like the big animals from different Haba games. And a Haba game, Animal Upon Animal, I think was one of the first games that I introduced to my nieces and nephews when they were very young. George, also, I was forgetting some other solo campaigns that we have in our games, and George mentioned the solo campaign and Tapestry Plans and Ploys, which we are reprinting right now if anyone's waiting to try that. Stefan says, when his kids were 4, we started playing Carcassonne Jr. and played it a lot. Board Games James is excited to play Stamp Swap and Origin Story with his partner. I hope you have fun with those games, James. Nicole wondering about the chocolate of the day. Nicole says, lately I've been enjoying butter tarts with dark chocolate chips on top. That sounds delicious, Nicole. I'm jealous of that. Today's treat of the day for me probably isn't chocolate. The local ice cream place that we go to, they just released 5 new flavors based all on different Christmas cookies or holiday cookies, I guess. They're not all Christmas related. So we got a scoop of each, and we've been savoring those scoops. So holiday cookie ice cream scoops, I think, is my treat of the day today. Aaron mentions the way I taught Origin Story was to play a few rounds without the powers or anything to introduce the concept of trick-taking game. Then once everyone was comfortable, went into the game proper. I think that's a legitimate way to do it. We tried to have the game ramp up so that we try to have the game start off very simply. And even though there are 2 powers that you'll start the game with, your character power and then 1 power card, you can just ignore them if you want and just play that trick without charging those powers. The Origin Story always gives you that flexibility. If you don't understand, if you don't care about it, if the powers don't apply to your current hand, you just don't charge them, and then you proceed with play. James says, will you be attending PAX U? Stonemaier Games will have a presence there through MeepleSource, but I won't personally be there. I see the rest of your comment there. Will Stonemaier Games be at the MeepleSource booth? Yes. Or is there another Inside Up collaboration? We collaborate with them specifically at Essen and not elsewhere that I'm aware of. I do talk to Connor from time to time. He's great to bounce ideas off of. Oh no, Wendy. Wendy says the wonderful animal shelter where I volunteer had a fire 2 weeks ago. All 60+ cats and dogs made it, and cats and 2 dogs made it out safely, but we could use some good vibes as insurance assesses things and rebuilding begins. Absolutely, Wendy. I'm glad you're there for them, and hopefully insurance does the right thing in helping to rebuild the shelter quickly. Tickler says, have you ever considered creating a card database with FAQs for your card games? Leader Games has an impressive one, and it's really cool also just to browse and enjoy the art after you've played. We have this for some of our games in two different places. Rulebook has it for Red Rising and maybe Charterstone. We have one for Charterstone, and then we have like blank search, like wing search, worm search, fin search. We have those databases that you can see on the FAQ pages of our website for those cards. We don't have a great way of building FAQs into them at this point in time, but I could see that being something that we add in the future. Although ideally, again, all those games, except for Finspan, are games where we use text on the cards. So ideally, the text would cover everything without the need for an FAQ. Buy Yourself Game says, if you were starting in the industry now, where would your focus be? Where would you focus the majority of your time? The majority of your time. So if I was starting in the industry now, where would I focus the majority of my time? I don't know if I would. Honestly, I don't know if I would focus the majority of my time on any one particular thing. I think I would try to juggle a few different things, including either designing, developing, or finding a great game to publish, assuming we're in the publisher realm here. That would be part of it. Building community would be another big part of it, like finding the crowd that you need to have to start a project on crowdfunding, because I would probably be crowdfunding if I was launching a new game for the first time. Just being an active, generous, hopefully kind part of that community. I'd spend part of it on content creation. I would try to add value to people through some sort of content that I'm creating, whether it's a podcast, a video, a blog, or a little bit of each. I think those would be the three major pockets that I would start out with. Those three. Yeah. Edward says, so there are some good comments. Tom, I won't read them all out loud, but there are some good comments here, including Edward's about when to start playing games with kids. Edward says, we started First Orchard with our daughter when she was in her late 2s. Still needs lots of help, but we are slowly expanding what we play. She's 3.5 now and is still pretty limited. Haba is usually good. Julio says, it seems rulebook writing is a current curiosity topic. That would be a good blog post, perhaps. I will look at that. Yeah. I don't know if I have a devoted blog post about rulebook writing, but that might be more of a video, but we'll see. It's generally I stay away from like things that are very specific to tabletop games that don't apply to other industries, but instruction manuals do go with other industries as well. So maybe I like that. That's a good point. Thank you for highlighting that, Julio. Matilda says, when you're involved in designing a game, does it dilute your enjoyment in actually playing the game, or how does it change your perspective? It's a great question. So typically what it looks like for me when I am either designing or developing a game, working with another designer on the game, there often comes a point right around the time that we're entering production that I need a break from that game. I've spent a lot of creative time and energy on that game, whether it's playtesting or the product design or the proofreading, the oversight, all that stuff, the project management. I spend a lot of time on our products and our games. And so I need a little bit of a break from it. And what's great is that there's a built-in break at that point in time where I don't get to see anything until the pre-production copy is sent to us from our manufacturer. And then at that point in time, I'm kind of refreshed and I'm really excited to get that to the table and playtest it and see, not playtest it, but just to make sure that it works the way that we intended. So yeah, I do get a little burned out on our games during that time. And then when the game is, and at that point, I think the main thing is that at that point, I just want it to exist. I want the final version to exist. And that's why I get really excited again when the final version does actually exist. James says, I find the mission I asked about missions in Vantage. James says, I find the mission a bit lackluster after you've learned to play and get more into the exploring and prefer the individual quests. There are a bunch of different types of goals in the game aside from the mission. So that's good to know that after you know how to play, that you no longer kind of need that guidance, but maybe it was helpful when you were learning to play. Curvecut is giving a shout out to the Protocon BC. I'm looking forward to showing his game there. So feel free to look out for Curvecut Games at Protocon BC if you're attending that. Melissa also says the mission is secondary. I just enjoy the journey and don't worry about the destination. I feel that same way when I play Vantage, Melissa. Jason says the Vantage mission importance is 50-50 for him. Some players really want to chase the mission. I just kind of prefer roaming. It's cool to have the option. So the option is important there for you. That's good feedback too. Mark says, I love the goal, love the mission. I do play and not pay attention to the mission unless an option that may help the mission naturally comes up. Right now, I just like to choose different options and see what happens, which is oftentimes the way that I play. But even then, it is nice at times to have the idea of the mission as something that I could pursue if I wanted to. Carell says, every time I play Vantage with my wife, the mission is fill your grid with pets, no matter which card is in the center. I like that, Carell. I want to do a challenge that's kind of related to that in the future. Dan says that his son plays Ultimate Frisbee. I played a lot of Ultimate Frisbee myself back in the day, so I picked up a Shark Frenzy disc golf disc with my last purchase from Stonemaier Games. We noticed that the disc flies very differently from a regular Frisbee. It does. Any advice for getting started with throwing disc golf discs, especially transitioning from a regular Frisbee? The main thing that I'd mention is that the grip is different for disc golf for a backhand throw. For forehand, it's pretty similar, where you're putting your fingers on the inside rim of the disc. But for backhand, I learned early on that you're kind of gripping it, instead of with an open hand, you're gripping the inside of the rim of the disc with a kind of a closed fist almost. Yeah, that's a very quick mention there, but that is something that I learned very on, that the grip is distinctly different in how you throw. Also, most Ultimate Frisbees, they're built to move the same way. Like you don't choose a different disc when you want to throw to the right or to the left or very straight. Whereas in disc golf, discs want to do different things. Some of them want to like veer hard to the left or hard to the right. Some are for different distances as well. So experimenting with different release angles for different discs is, I think, part of the learning curve of disc golf, and trying different discs in general. Justin says, I gifted Origin Story to my good friend. I've been waiting for them to be able to play. Finally did, and it's great. My favorite power is precognition. I was 2 for 2 with it, and it was so satisfying. I'm glad to hear that, Justin. Thank you for trying it. And I do love how different powers stand out or combo together with other powers. Austin also has a comment about rulebook writing. It's definitely a skill I've been trying to get better at. It can be pretty tough to describe rules accurately and in detail, but without seemingly rambling and being disorganized. I could definitely relate to that, Austin. And there are certainly times, I would say my biggest mistake that I make in rulebook writing right now is when I have updated a rulebook from a previous version of the game and I forget to update anything in there. Because I kind of know that, you know the game as a designer, but the people that you're trying to have blind playtest the game, they don't know the game. I've made that mistake multiple times, and I don't have a great way of avoiding it in the future. One thing that I found that helps a little bit is that if I read the rulebook backwards, that helps a little bit. It kind of breaks me out from skimming by accident. But yeah, I'm working on that. Aaron says, I go either way with the Vantage missions. I like that it provides a framework should I wish to engage with it, but depending on my mood and mission, I may ignore it entirely. Yeah, that's similar to me as well, Aaron. Thank you for sharing that. Steven says, about playing Vantage solo, I typically start at 6 resources and try and go for an epic victory, value having a sense of purpose while discovering. I think a future mission pack would be great. I appreciate that, Steven. I know that we won't be doing that. I know that we won't have a new set of missions in the game. But I'm totally open to incorporating them into the monthly challenge type thing. So if there are mission or challenge ideas, I'm happy to do them on a monthly basis or continue to include them in the monthly challenge basis. Currently, there are 21 missions in the game. Rick also says that when I play Vantage solo, I ignore the mission. I appreciate it in multiplayer games as an end post. I also appreciate that there's so many missions. Thank you, Rick. And I can relate to that as well. In a multiplayer game, especially with new players, I think they tend to struggle a little bit with the freedom of the game and want something to focus on. And the mission is there for that. And the mission also can help speed up the game quite a bit. Board Game James says, on chocolate, have I tried the trending Dubai chocolate? You know, there's a bar of chocolate, of Dubai chocolate in my local grocery store that I've been tempted to try. I normally don't spend, it's like $10 or $12 on a bar of chocolate. That's a lot. But I'm curious to try it at some point. So one of these days I will see it and I'll just be in the mood to go for it and I'll give it a try. Have you tried it? Do you like it? What do you think? I'm a little behind on questions here, so I'm going to scroll through, focus on questions real quick. I see some great answers to previous questions here as well. And I also have a few topics that I haven't covered, so I'll cover those in a second. Tony says, what's the daylight savings time topic, and how is daylight savings time still a thing? I put it in the title so people would know that if their time zone hasn't changed, that it has changed for me. And so they would be able to show up on time today. Dan says it would be interesting to hear what non-Stonemaier games you think have peak rulebooks. You know, I feel like I may have done a video on this or thought about this because I have a hard time picking that. I'm looking over my collection right now, but I did a video about, I'm recalling now, I did a video about graphic design and that came up. So I will incorporate that into the blog post, Dan. I'll highlight other publishers as well. Yeah. Dayat says, I'm always surprised how many games are being funded every month on the Board Game Geek crowdfunding countdown. How high is up? How high is up? Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. There are a lot. There are still quite a few crowdfunding games that launch pretty much every Tuesday. And it's a lot, but I'm glad to see. I'm always excited to see the creativity and innovation that comes from those crowdfunding projects and any new release game as well. Chad has a disc golf recommendation. I tell beginners to focus on throwing as low and level as they can. Then they will see how the disc will act in the air. That's a good tip. I think it's very easy, even as someone who has played disc golf a lot, to go nose up, as we say, and have the disc go way up in the air. And then it's going to do things that aren't as normal as when you focus on throwing level. Matt says, can you do your own version of MTV Cribs and show us around your house inside your fridge and your collection of Ferraris? I don't have just have the one car. Maybe sometime I'll do that. I'm on a desktop computer right now with a webcam attached to the desktop, so I can't do it here. But maybe at some point, if my partner Megan is okay with it, I will do a tour of the house, either on video or in photos. It is not a big house, so we have, how many rooms do we have? I have an office, we have a bedroom, and we have a living room and a kitchen and some bathrooms. We have 2 different bathrooms. Yeah. Austin says, I'll go buy a board game real quick so you can get some Dubai chocolate. I'll get a Dubai chocolate bar. I'll get it the next time. I'll put it on the grocery list to get a Dubai chocolate, and I'll report back on the next live cast. Here we go. I'm putting it on my grocery list right now. Dubai chocolate. Okay, it's on the list. Wendy says that editing is my wheelhouse. I read so many board game rules. This is very interesting to me. Any suggestions on getting into rulebook editing or writing for board games? That's a good question, Wendy. If a publisher has a volunteer program like we do, the Stonemaier Ambassadors Program, that is one way to get involved a little bit. But oftentimes, well, at least for established publishers, we might have a long list there of people. So one thing that you could do, perhaps, is to ask games that are in progress, like maybe on crowdfunding, to offer to playtest their rulebook. And I would say, honestly, I know you deserve compensation for it, but if you're trying to get your foot in the door for rulebook editing, I would just offer to do it for free. I would say, offer to spend an hour with a crowdfunding rulebook and say, I'm happy to offer to do it like a quick proofread, a quick edit to see what I can do, see what feedback I can offer. And I say that because I remember from my crowdfunding days that I would have people show up and say, hey, I'll translate your game if I can get a copy for free, or I'll proofread your game if I can get a copy for free. And I understand the intent, but it always, I never knew what to expect from that. Like, were they actually going to do anything with it? How is their quality? Like, I don't know how good of a proofreader, or copy editor, or translator they are, that sort of thing. So it was helpful for someone to kind of prove their skills. And then if they were good, then I would pay them in the future. I would just pay them, not just a free game, but I would pay them for their services. So if you want to get your foot in the door, I think that's one way to do it. Reach out to newer creators. Crowdfunder is probably an easy way to start, and just offer to give them an hour of your time to copy edit or proofread their current rulebook. James says, James also has a comment about this. I volunteer for Kickstarter games and I chat with other editors and volunteer for them. I'm a bit of a ghost editor. That's great. That's very generous of you to do, James. Mark says, is the Tokaido base and combined expansions considered complete, meaning no more expansions planned, or are there plans to expand this world further? There is not, James. I'm sorry, Mark. I would consider Tokaido, the game Tokaido, I would consider it complete in terms of what we plan on making for it. I would probably say the same for Tokaido Duo. And Namiji, we're working on Namiji right now, our version of that. What I think is in the future for Tokaido, other than reprints of what we've already made, is hopefully a new game in the series from the designer Antoine Bauza. That is my hope for the future. We'll see if that actually happens. It's up to Antoine to do something with that. And if he never does something with it, I might dabble in that world as a designer. But I think Antoine wants to do something in that world as a designer. So some quick topics I didn't already cover today. I played 2 digital games recently. One, I've mentioned that I've been playing Dredge a little bit. And I also played the game Slots and Daggers recently, just a few minutes with it. It's a roguelike slot building game where you're building the slots and making the slots better. I also want to play in the near future. I want to play the game Slay the Princess. Have any of you played Slay this Princess? Would you recommend that I play that one? A friend kind of hooked me on the idea of it because it said it involves a time loop mechanism, and I love time loop fiction. So I'm very curious about Slay the Princess. I've also played Skull King a few times recently with the expansion and on Board Game Arena. Had a really fun, epic game with 7 people on Board Game Arena last Wednesday. My video this past weekend was about tile selection. If you're curious about tile selection in games. And I think that actually covers all the topics. Yeah. So I'll finish up with any remaining comments or questions that you all have. And James says, hopefully not such a big box for Namiji. Absolutely. Yeah, we are going to get it down to a more standard box size, not the giant box that I have that doesn't fit on my shelf at all. Chad says, right now I think I own every game that I want to own at this time. Just trying to cull 2 or 3. I want to focus on playing the games that I have. Ever felt this way? It's odd not to be on the hunt. You know, I kind of feel that way right now, Chad. And I know it will come and go for me for sure. Absolutely, for sure. There will be new games that excite me. And there are new games that I'm curious about right now. But right now I'm adding more to my list of games to play at conventions, to play for the first time at conventions, or on even Board Game Arena, than I am acquiring new games. There are exceptions to that, but that is kind of where I am right now with games. Aaron says, have I made a decision on the expansion to Namiji? And yes, we are going to combine it in with the core game of Namiji. I looked into it. It didn't add anything overly complex that I think doesn't belong in the core game from the start. Yeah. Any other questions that you all have before I wrap up the day today? Thank you for your thoughts on the blog topic of rulebook writing. I'm actually kind of curious. I'll Google this real quick to see if I've done a post or a video on rulebooks. I don't think I have. I know I have a section of the how to design a tabletop game portion of our website. And do I have an area about rule writing here? Create a prototype. Playtest your game. I'll look through it. I'll look. Oh, here we go. How to write a rule book. There's something from the Board Game Lab. There's some linked articles here, but it doesn't look like I wrote any of these. I might have a video on it. Here's a couple of videos that are linked. Let's see what I've linked here. From the delightful designer Pam Walls. The Dice Tower has a video about how to write an excellent rule book. I don't think that I have an article about this topic, so I will think about that for a future blog post, and hopefully with some examples from Stonemaier Games and from other publishers' games as well. So thank you for that topic. I really appreciate that. I see a question from Chad here. He says that he just had chili the other day with the weather getting colder. What food are you looking for to warming you up this season? For me, it's ramen. This is ramen season for me. Like a good ramen. So yeah, that's probably my as it's getting colder, get some good St. Louis ramen. I like Nudo House quite a bit. That's probably my go-to St. Louis ramen right now. All right, well, I'm going to go warm my belly a little bit with some lunch. Thank you all for joining me for this conversation for the last hour. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Keep your fingers crossed for the Supreme Court ruling, and I will see you next Wednesday. And I see Mark's comment at the last second here. He says, what do you think about doing a video about retheming in games? Retheming in games. I'll think about that one, Mark. I'll see if that one piques my interest. I like the idea. I'll look into it. Cody popped in real quick. Hey, Cody, I hope you're doing well at Far Off Games. Congrats on the great Iridia review from Shelfside the other day. That was awesome to see. And Aaron, I'm jealous of your ramen at Ichiran in New York City. That's awesome. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Good to see you, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.